Hey there and welcome to another PSD Tuts spoon-fed Photoshop tutorial. I'm Gavin Steele and I'm going to be taking you through Alex's how to digitally illustrate a camera with light streaks. Head over to psdtuts.com and you can check out all of the steps on how we can create this really cool design with all these little light streaks coming over the top and behind the camera, and the camera just floating in space, I guess, on top of this nebula image. And it's a really great design. The great thing about this tutorial is that Alex takes you through some of the ideas and some of the areas that he drew from to create the design, and he creates a really great prelude and a really good introduction for this tutorial, so make sure you read that and check it out. And I hope you use this video tutorial as support or guide along with all of these step-by-step parts of this tutorial. So all of the files again are linked to. Don't forget to check out psdtuts.com for all the great tutorials, interviews, free stock images, brushes, and all that great stuff. We're going to be using this image of a digital camera and this butterfly nebula. So, first thing you need to do is load up Photoshop, create a document that is 1024 by 766 pixels, or a large document, and stick your camera on there. Now, I got my image of my camera, I downloaded it, and then let's just close that. That's the finished piece. And I use the pen tool to cut around the camera. Again, I just, using the pen tool, I went right around the edges. I could have been a little bit neater as I went around, if I zoomed in a bit better. I just went around all of the camera, and then once I finished and I came back to where I started, I right-clicked it, made it a selection, get rid of any feathering, and I copied and pasted it onto this document here, and then I renamed that layer camera. So take your time when you're going around the camera to cut off any straps or anything like that, and stick it on its own layer above a background layer. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to take you through the background layer. Background layer's just got a gradient on it. Okay, it's this gradient here, and I've selected this little tool at the top, which is the radial gradient. And if I just take you through that, it goes from a black color to a dark green, which is 203534. Okay, click on that, and then click on OK. I just place the camera layer right on top of that. Now, camera layer stands out a little bit too much. It's not very subtle, so we're going to play around with the image layer on top of our camera layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and then select Gradient Map. Click on OK, and then we're going to play around by clicking on the gradient with the colours of that layer. Now, I've already got mine predefined down here at the bottom. Now I'm going to take you through each of these colours. It's exactly the same as the background layer. We've got that black colour, that dark green colour, but I've just added white and this creamy colour to it. That creamy colour is F4D597, and then hit OK, and we've just got the white colour there, which was obviously all the Fs. Okay, so like I said, nice cream colour, the green we had earlier, and black. Make sure you've got all those colours set, click on OK, and then on OK again. And you can see it creates this nice little yellowy tone to the lens, but it's applied it to the whole of that layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to clip it to our camera layer. So if we hold down Alt and move the mouse right between these two layers, you can see that the mouse symbol changes from the pointing finger to those little circles, and then just left click, and it should just apply those settings to our camera. And as you can see, our background is now back to the way it is, and our camera kind of fits in a little bit more, and the lighting's just that little bit better and kind of sets the mood. So once you've done that, we're going to start to create all of our different brushes. Now, you need to start with all of the brushes that are going to fall underneath the camera. So I'm going to click on my layer 1, which is my background layer. I'm going to add a new layer so you can see that's underneath the camera layer. And then I'm going to set up my brush tool, which is what we're going to use to stroke the pen outline, the path that we create. So head over to the brush tool. I'm going to select small brush, maybe 3 pixels, and hardness is set to, let's set that to 100%. Okay, and then we're going to choose our first pink color. So I've got a couple of swatches saved down here. Let's see, let's try this one here. Okay, that is E66663. Click on OK. And we're going to start to draw out our lines. Now we could do this freehand. I've got my bamboo Wacom set up here, just so I can do some of the strokes a little later on. But I could just slowly just stroke in some of these, like so. Or I can head over to the pen tool and I can click once at the top, click somewhere behind the camera here, and holding down, you can just bend that out, and then again down the bottom so we get that little swervy shape there. And then if I right click on that, I can go to stroke that path, and I can use the brush settings we set earlier, and I can click on OK. Let's just move that up there and click on OK, and then hit enter or return, and you can see it's done exactly the same. The difference is, because I use the Wacom for these lines here, it's picked up the pressure of the pen as I'm pressing down. But when I've stroked it here, I didn't check the pressure box, so it's kept it nice and strong, nice and bold. Now when you're creating these layers, what you need to do is you need to group them together. So I'm just going to do a few more. In fact, if I just zoom out just a little bit so we can come out the top of the edge, top of the box, like so, and again, and then right click, stroke the path, and we're just going to create a few more of these. Okay, do one more down here. Okay, and then maybe group those together. You can even duplicate that layer, play around with that a little bit. Like so, until you get this nice little pattern going around the back. Make sure that you group them together, because later on we're going to turn off a few. We're going to try and create as many as possible until we get a look that we like, and we might want to turn off some of these layers or some of these groups. What we also want to do is we're going to start to blur some of the ends of these tools. Now I'm just going to quickly add a new layer. I'm going to head over to my brush tool, and I've got my calligraphy set open, or I did have. There we go. Okay, these are the calligraphy brushes. To get them, just click on this little arrow at the top up here, and then you can load brushes, and here are the calligraphic brushes, sorry. So just select that and it should load these. It might ask you if you want to save your brush set. I saved mine, so now I've got them all together with all the free brushes that I've downloaded from the web. So select, for the bigger lines, something like this 20, and again maybe alternate your colour. So I've got a few other pinks over here. Head over to my pen tool. Because I've already preset that with my pen tool, when I stroke the path, you can see that it applies using that calligraphy or calligraphic pen option, or tip option should I say, for the brush. So again, play around with those. I'm going to just again change the colour to a light colour, and this time I'm just going to free draw a few in. Okay, again I'm just using the bamboo, the tablet to do this. You can use your mouse quite easily. Again, just going to decrease the size a bit. Go to a pink colour. Okay, and then using the smudge tool on some of the ends here, just gonna smudge. Whoop. Okay. I'm just gonna smudge that out. So make sure you got the smudge tool selected and come to the ends down here. And I'm just gonna smudge some of these out. Once you've got your background layer looking how you want it, I'm going to come back to this in 1 second. I'm just going to show you about the top layer. Select a couple of your background layers. Let's bring this one down and duplicate that. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and Motion Blur. 32 should be okay. Yeah, start to bring that down. It starts to give you a little bit of a glow. Play around with the opacity of these layers. Just bring them down, smudge them a little bit. And then on top of your camera layer, we're going to add a new layer. And again, for the same process, we're going to create all our little lines and all the little flicks. Now because we're on top, we want these lines to come across the center and around the lens and out the bottom. So again, just play around with these. Like so. Again, play around with your brushes, going between your circular ones, changing your colours. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and add all my lines and then we'll get back on with the rest of the tutorial. Alright, well I've got all my lines in place now and I've smudged and blurred them out. Now I know it seems like I've done a lot in that quick little jump, so I'm just going to take you through all the different things that we did. In the lines that are below the camera, okay, I just used, if I just turn off some of these layers, let's turn the top ones off. Okay, so I've just blurred out some of those background lines, the little flicks to the left, so they're just really subtle and they sit underneath the harder lines. Okay, which we can see down at the bottom. And again, just alternating between 3 or 4 different colours in my palette. This light pink, harsh pink, an orangey pink, and this white creamy colour down here. And again, just played around, smudging these ends, blurring the ends in all the different groups. And again, the main bit down the middle. And then I'll just show you the top layer. Again, blurring them. The only thing we did slightly different on these layers is add a bit of satin and overlay. And the colour used was C8304B. Opacity was set to 50. The angle was 19. Distance 5, size 6, and the contour, okay, is this nice little curve here, which you should have as one of your presets. And then we inverted that and click on OK. And that was just on a couple of the layers to give a nice satin feel to that. Some of these lines as well, if you notice, I'm not sure if it'll show up too well on the screencast, but the centre of the line is nicely in focused, but the edge of it is just slightly blurry. So I'm just going to show you how to quickly do one of those layers. So I'm just going to add a new layer here. I'm going to go over to my pen tool and I'm going to select one of these lighter colours. Something like that. Click on OK. And again, I'm going to start this up at the top somewhere. It's going to come down here, finish down there. And again, right click like we were doing before, stroke the path, click on OK. It's a little bit thick, so I'm just going to go back, change the setting on my brush tool down to about 2 or 3 pixels, go back to my pen tool, right click and stroke the path. Okay, then we're going to go into quick mask mode, and we're going to use a gradient. And let's go from black to white, and let's just draw it across the middle. Make sure you change the setting back from the radial to the linear, and again draw that across the middle like so, and then exit the quick mask mode, head up to filter, go down to blur, and this time we're going to use a lens blur. Let's bring that in so you can see all the options. Right, you should be able to see I've got this set on radius of 15. We've got the ends here are really faint and really blurry, but as we come down towards the end down here, they're starting to sharpen up a bit. So I'm going to give that 15 a go. Click on OK, and then deselect. Okay, and it adds a nice blur halfway through or to the ends of the lines, again adding a bit of depth. Okay, drawing the eye to the more focused bits. So it's really a nice little effect. So once you've done that, I'd stick everything into a nice big group, like so, and make sure label them something like top or bottom or something like that. Once we've done that and you've got all your lines in place and you've got all the blurring and so on, we're going to move on to the next stage, which is adding our flash to this top part here. So add a new layer. I'm just going to use a normal brush for this. Let's have it set at about 100. I'm going to choose a yellowy whitey colour or orangey, like so, and I'm just going to draw straight onto that layer. Now because I'm using the Wacom, it's going to pick up how hard I press down, so if I draw like that you can see it's drawing a horrible pencil kind of line. So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to use my mouse for this bit. And again, I just want to maybe lower the opacity a little bit. And transform it. And hit enter. And then we're going to go add our lens flare, and then we're going to apply a color gradient overlay to that layer. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to fill that with black, like so. I'm going to go to filter, render, and lens flare. I'm going to have that set to 35mm, and just going to move the cross around. So we get something. Let's try. That's too much. Yeah, let's stick with 35mm, bring it in a little bit closer. Click on OK. And then we're going to set that layer to screen and lower the opacity down to about 60–65%. And then I'm just going to move that into position like so. And then using the eraser tool, or we can use a mask and a big soft brush in black. I'm just going to slowly just click to get rid of this edge around here. Okay, there are plenty of ways of adding lens flare. This is just a real quick, rough way of doing it, but it works quite well. Just going to increase the opacity just a little bit. Okay, and that looks pretty good. The next thing we need to do is to add our gradient overlay. So again, we go back to layer. We're going to go to new adjustment layer, gradient map. Click on OK, and then we're going to choose our colour. Now I don't think I've got this one saved down here. I don't, so we're going to create this one from scratch. And let's go for black for the first colour. We're going to go for our creamy yellow F4 D597 for our end colour. And then we're going to select another colour in here. Let's set that to a nice reddish colour. So I'm just going to sample that from over here. Okay. And that is 913536. Click on OK and OK again. Okay, and then like we did before, we're going to clip it to this flare layer, hold down Alt and just click in the middle, and it's just going to colorize or add a bit of color to our lens so it doesn't just stand out as bright white. Okay, once we've done that, we're going to move on to our nebula. So make sure you've downloaded that image. I've got it loaded down here. Okay, I'm just going to click on my move tool and I'm just going to drag it right on top like so, and then I'm going to try and position it into place, something like that. And then we need to apply some settings to that layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the blending mode to screen. Okay, and then I'm going to mask out the middle part so we haven't got it over our camera. So click on the mask, again using our brush tool. I'm just going to slowly just make sure we've got our center point is the camera. Let's increase the opacity. Okay, I'm going to have it coming over the lens just a little bit down here and just a little bit over the edge down on the left hand side like so. You could just erase that out, it's totally up to you. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a quick mask again. So head over to quick mask. This time what we're going to do is we're going to create a reflected linear gradient. So head over to your bucket tool, hold down on that, select gradient tool, and it's this one right here, reflected gradient. So select that. I'm just going to have it going from black to white and start somewhere in the middle and drag it out to the top left corner like so. Exit quick mask and press Q, and then we're going to apply another lens blur. So go to filter, blur, lens blur, and hopefully that's just applying it to the bit that we want it to, and it is. Let's just decrease that to 10 and then click on OK. Okay, that looks fine, and then let's deselect. And now you can see that the center of our image is nice and focused. Oops, sorry. The center of the image is nice and focused, and our edges of our nebula, they're all blurred. Okay, so this area right across the middle is nicely in focus. Once we've done that, and we've applied our nebula, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to apply another gradient map. So to finish editing the stars, we're going to go to Layer, another new adjustment layer, another gradient map, and we're going to use, click on OK, one of our ones that we saved from earlier, which is this one here. Again, it goes from black, all the zeros, to that dark green color, 203534, to that cream color, which is F4D597, and then finally to white, which is FFFFF. Click on OK, click on OK, and OK. Hold down Alt, and we're going to clip it to our stars layer. Okay, last couple of things. We're going to adjust the contrast and saturation. So we're going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and we're going to go to, if I can find it, curves. Click on OK. And then we're just going to play around with our curves. So what we need to do is select this first little box down here, somewhere in the middle, and we're just going to drag that down just a little bit. Like so. And then we're going to bring this one just up a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what that's doing. I'm just going to move that down here. So if we bring this one up, it's going to start to lighten, going into this lighten area up the top. We just want it to be just that little bit lighter, and what this is doing is we're dragging this down, so this part of the picture is just getting that little bit darker. So something like that. Let's bring this one just up a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to click on OK. So there we've increased the contrast. We're going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and this time we're going to go to Hue and Saturation. Click on OK. Let's bring that up. Now what we're going to do with our hue and saturation is we're going to cut back on the color intensity. So we're going to set the saturation to be -26. Click on OK. So it's just pulling back some of the saturation in our image. Okay, in the next step, we're going to add an effect that will not only give the lines more intense glow and a 3D look, but it'll also help cast light on the camera's edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to flatten our project. So I'm going to hold down Command, Shift, and E. And then I'm going to select the whole layer, so hold down Command A. I'm going to copy it, Command C. And then I'm going to check my history panel just to make sure we can go back a few steps right before merging all the layers. And we're going to paste it. So let me come back up here to my history panel. Just drag that out like so. So we've copied it, and now we're going to go back to just the part right before we merge them. So here's where we merge and flatten them. Just before that, we're going to go back to there. We're going to Command V, and we're going to paste that in. We could have applied the image as well. Let me just drag that back. We could have gone to Image and applied the image onto this layer. It's just another technique for getting our image on top of all the stack of the layers. Right, once we've done that, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to Filter and Stylize, and then we're going to add glowing edges. So Filter, Stylize, glowing edges. And then we're going to use, let's drag this up a little bit. Let's zoom out. We're going to use the standard settings as a reference, but we're going to increase the smoothness by a couple of points, and then we're going to apply that. So let's just bring up the smoothness just a little bit. Okay, click on OK, and then we're going to set the blending mode for that to screen. Okay, and that's just going to add that little bit of 3D effect to those bars and to those stripes. Again, you got to play around with that. It might be a little bit too strong, or you might feel it's a little bit too strong. So just go back, Filter, Stylize, head down to glowing edges, and then maybe just reduce it down 1 to 6. Click on OK, set it back to screen until you get something that you're happy with. But I think that works pretty well on about 6 or 7. Kind of makes them stand out from each other, so it looks like they're a little bit thicker than they are, and they're 3D and they're overlapping in and whatnot. So make sure you set that to screen, and you'll notice that all those edges are nicely highlighted, especially with the camera as well. It works really well. Okay, so that's pretty much the tutorial. That's how you create the effect. Lots of pen tool, lots of applying different layer adjustments to the final image until you get something that you're happy with. So don't forget to check out psttuts.com and all of Alex's other great tutorials. Use this video as a nice little support for all of the steps that Alex provides, and don't forget to check out the other areas on psttuts.com. Thanks very much, I've been Gavin Steele, and I hope you enjoyed that tutorial.